Let's talk about Portugal now. We have to talk about Portugal. Suddenly taking a more active role in the war on Ukraine. By the way, I think the Portuguese flag is one of the most beautiful flags, by the way. And I love Portugal. And, you know, they're taking now a more active role in Ukraine in World War III. I'm going to stop calling it the war in Ukraine. I'm going to call it World War III because that's exactly what it is. Portugal famously stayed out of World War II. A neutral country, by the way. And look how beautiful this country was. And it is. They also fought hard to stay out of NATO. Most people don't realize that. They did not want to become a part of NATO. But the US and the UK threatened Portugal, so that they were more or less forced to join NATO. Now, look, we all have free will. They could have, at the end of the day, said, no, we're not under any circumstances joining NATO. But they did, but they were forced because of these bigger powers breathing down their neck and forcing them into these things. It's a country of 11 million people, so it's not a very big country. It's about the size geographically of like a little bit bigger than New Jersey. Now Portugal is being forced once again to kiss the feet of the West, to kiss the feet of the United States and their NATO commitment by sending tanks to Ukraine. It kind of reminds me almost of like gang membership. You know, like, oh, you want to be a part of this gang? Fine, prove it to us. Like in Goodfellas. Oh yeah, you want to be a part of the gangsters? You want to be a part of NATO, the warmongers of the world? Yeah, prove it to us. Go find some stuff that you can send to Ukraine. Go to your war closet, and what kind of weapons can you show the world that you're just not an innocent neutral bystander anymore? And Portugal this weekend now announcing, yes, we will kiss your ring. We will kiss your ring, United States. We will kiss your ring, UK. And Portugal announcing they will send those Leopard tanks to Ukraine. This is Antonio Costa, the prime minister, making the announcement. I think it's just the biggest bonehead move. Really, really stupid. So Portugal is going to send 2 Leopard tanks to Ukraine. 2. So why not send none? Because the 2 that you're sending are from the 1970s and they don't even work. Like literally we had to pull up archive footage of this is 1970s footage of the Leopard tanks. Look at this. These are the Leopard tanks.
We have 1,000 people starving over in this town over here. It's like, here's 2 beans.
Right. What am I going to do with this? It's more work. And as Scott Ritter has pointed out on our show before, it actually makes Ukraine weaker when we send them this shit. Here's a bunch of old stuff that you now need to go out and try to figure out how to repair. So no, here at Costa added that Portugal is in talks with Germany to obtain parts needed for the repair of a number of inoperable Leopard tanks in Portugal's inventory. So now Portugal, come on, really? Portugal was a warmongering country, one of the first, really. One of the oldest and first. And the stuff that Portugal did in its history is stuff you can't even tell your kids about. It's so awful. Read books about it. It's awful, awful stuff that Portugal did. But
now, are people protesting it over there? Just out of curiosity, are they?
No. Good luck finding anti-NATO protests. It's very difficult to find. It's difficult to find. But there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of people in Portugal who are really resentful of what's been happening. But, you know, if you want to kiss the hand of NATO, you do it. You're going to dig out some old tanks and you're going to do it. See, again, Portugal was a warmongering country many, many years ago. Then they learned their lesson. And they said, you know what? No, we don't want to do that anymore. That's not worth it. And so then they became neutral. And in World War II, they were neutral. And they have remained so in large part. And they can sort of sit back and while all these other countries want to go warmongering, they can say, no, we did that for hundreds of years of our history. And it didn't get us very far. And so we're going to sit this one out. So you want to be the biggest and strongest country in the world, the United States, and bomb everyone and colonize everyone, make everyone hate you so they attack you? We've been there, done that. Bye. So they're in talks with Germany to obtain parts needed for the repair of a number of these inoperable Leopard tanks. In some ways, can't wrap my head around this. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You're literally going through your old closet and taking out a bunch of crap that does not work, and it's like you're sending it off because you don't want to deal with fixing it. You know,
and they're like going to think that Germany just has a closet full of parts for their tanks.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, you know, nobody's still manufacturing parts for it. So it's like the parts they're going to get, who's going to repair those? Somebody's going to have to repair the parts to send them to repair the tanks to get them to Ukraine.
Right.
Both of them.
And again, both of them. So why not send nothing? It's not going to do anything. An old, busted up tank from the 1970s? You don't think Russia has that number on it? Probably will use it as just target practice for fun. The moment it gets there, it'll be molten. It'll be burned, destroyed.
They're like, just hit the manifold. They can't remake that. Like, they only got to hit one part of it. They're like, they can't find that in Germany or Portugal. So just hit that part. And
it's like the whack-a-mole thing. You just get hit the one part and boom, and the thing just pops apart like an old tin can. So Costa says, yeah, we're going to get these inventories out. He says, we are currently working to be able to dispense some of our tanks. I kind of like that comment. He's kind of like, man, we got a bunch of old crap. It's taking up space. And maybe if this is like the silver lining here, where it's like Portugal's saying, okay, we tried. We don't want to have any tanks in our arsenal at all anymore. We're done. Like, we're done with any kind of warring. We're Portugal. We're a beautiful country. We've got lovely people. It's sunny all the time. We've got amazing food. We eat sardines in the spring. It's delicious. We don't want to have any tanks. We don't want to have any war.
Somebody in chat said the older stuff is better, Clayton, and the parts are easier to fix, knuckleheads. But if they're that easy to fix, why are they asking Germany for it? Why aren't they fixing it themselves if it's that easy?
So you mean to tell me a tank built in the 1970s without any of the advanced electronics is actually better than these current tanks? And no, they're not. In fact, the top of the line Leopards, in fact, they're now having to, as Colonel McGregor talked about with me last week, they're having to take apart these tanks. So they're not sending the best tanks to Ukraine because they don't want the best tanks to fall in the hands of Russians. Think about that. So they'd rather send them crap that will not really work. So they're not sending the highest grade armor, the highest grade armor Leopard tanks to Ukraine with all of the highest tech refinements that the German army has. You know what?
Think about that. They're not sending the best tanks or anything. They're not sending the best soldiers. They're trying to send citizens that have no idea how to fight. It's like, you're not sending your elite. You're not sending your good stuff. So what are you doing? You have no desire to, like, if you're going to win, quote unquote, what you're doing, then wouldn't you put in the best of the best in every front?
Yeah, you'd think. No, this is why I don't get it. You're cleaning out your closet. So here's a way to get rid of this crap. Let's just clean it out. And maybe, Portugal has made some sort of agreement with NATO. Like, if we clean out some of these old tanks, you'll supply us with new ones. Who knows, But again, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're signaling that, no, we're interested in really drawing a line in the sand and showing Russia that we are an enemy of Russia. And that us being a neutral country, which we've prided ourselves on for many, many decades, being a neutral country, no, now we're actively taking a stand to fight alongside warmongers in Ukraine, to foment World War III. Really, really disappointing. Really disappointing. And a stupid move. And by the way, don't you think, so they've announced publicly where these tanks are going to be shipped from. They're going to put them on rail lines, and they've told the world we're shipping them on rail through Spain into Ukraine.
But it totally makes sense to me, because it falls right in line with their narrative. Put the weakest people out front so we can show a bunch of images of bodies that Russia has done. Let them know where the tanks are going to be so they can blow them up, and we can put that on the news and say, hey, they destroyed these tanks. Hey, they did this. Hey, they did that. Not the expensive ones. The cheap ones we're getting from these other countries.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, if they can, as like from a NATO perspective, they could put GPS maps on exactly where these tanks are as they travel through Europe and send them to Russia. Because if Russia attacks them on the way, that automatically triggers all of NATO, and NATO wants that.
Yeah,
so
and that's exactly
they'd
what.
Be happy for Russia to shoot those tanks.
And Scott Ritter pointed out they're never going to do that. They'll wait till they get to the battlefield, and then they'll just take them out. You know, they'll just take them out and they'll be done. And all of that wasted effort, right? I mean, you literally have a country right now that, I mean, you know, Portugal's not the richest country in the world, not by a long shot. And so wouldn't you be better served mobilizing the amount of money it's going to take for you to put 2 tanks on rail lines and guard them through Spain and get them into Ukraine? Like, you know what? Fix up some of these dilapidated buildings. Do that. Fix up some of the streets and potholes and other things being uprooted by roots and trees, or you have like cars that go over bumps like this because they don't have the streets fixed. Fix that stuff. How about that? There's an idea. Instead of sending tanks to Ukraine. So Scott Ritter was on the show. He talked about Portugal and these tanks. Here's what former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter had this to say. Watch.
They're going to hit NATO. They're going to hit London. They're going to hit Berlin. They're going to hit Paris. They're going to hit Brussels. They're going to hit Madrid. They're going to hit Lisbon. Hey, Portugal, good job. You just made yourself a nuclear target.
Yeah. So why do it with this stupid move with 2 broken down Leopard tanks from the 1970s? Stay out of it. Stay out of it. Really disappointing. And really disappointing. And the people of Portugal, the kindest people in the world, the nicest people, they don't need this. They don't need this. And the leaders are doing the stupidest moves right now just to kiss the hands of NATO. And that's all this is. This is NATO bullying. This is NATO basically saying, hey, Portugal, show us what you got. You still want to be in NATO? Show us what you got.
Well, and there has to be some kind of return monetary or something there has to be something getting back, because it's like, look at the countries that were staying out. They weren't getting involved as much as they are now. And all of a sudden it's tanks and weapons and it's like world news. So it's like something happened to where they're like, hey, we're doing this. You want to stay in NATO or you want to continue to get these bribes or whatever they're getting. You
money.
have to do this.
They get money, of course. Yeah. And, they build a base in the Azores on the islands. So NATO has their bases there, of course, and they're getting money, of course, for that. And they didn't want it. They fought against it, and they didn't want it.
Yeah, and it just creates this illusion of world support. Like we all support Ukraine from the world, but
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.